Joining us now, Pennsylvania Senator Dave McCormick, member of the Foreign Relations Committee. All right, Senator, you're just back from Israel from meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So I want to talk about what we heard there from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff saying the response from Hamas to the deal that's now on the table is unacceptable and only moves us backwards. Do you have any sense of how we get to a deal and get those hostages home?
Well, listen, we just came back and had an opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu as well as the opposition, and everybody's unified that we need to get those hostages out, and that the framework Steve Witkoff put forward on behalf of the president seemed to be a path for doing that. And Hamas, which is been an absolute source of pure evil in this since October 7th, appears to have refused to do that. Listen, we've got to keep the pressure on Hamas. We've got to find ways to also bring humanitarian assistance. We met with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is trying to get food in the hands of the women and children. It's been hijacked by Hamas. So there's a number of things, but we need to keep the pressure on Hamas. There cannot be a military body from Hamas standing when this war is done.
So you mentioned the aid issue that has become very difficult and complex. There were reports overnight that at least 31 people were killed, dozens others, as they were trying to get to some food aid there in the Gaza Strip. The Associated Press says that witnesses are blaming Israeli forces. The Israeli military says they don't know of any injuries they caused. It's under review now. But what is your sense on getting our arms around what's become an enormous humanitarian crisis there?
Well, first of all, the crisis would end immediately if Hamas just gave the hostages back. But what's happened over time is the humanitarian aid has been used as a source of manipulation by Hamas. It's been used to sell the humanitarian aid to raise money for the fighters. So what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is trying to do is get the food directly in the hands of the families. They come and get a 40-pound box, which they take. It lasts for 5 days. It has water and food. And that's the key, is to get it into the hands of the people. I think this model has a lot of promise, but we've got a lot of work to do. I don't know about these reports in the last 24 hours, but the concept to me, I think, was necessary to make sure the aid's actually going to the people who need it.
So I know that there are conversations, too, about Israel and the U.S., our communications that we're having about whether they are considering a strike within Iran. We're also getting news of this report by the UN watchdog saying that they are further increasing stockpiling uranium, Iran is, to enrich weapons-grade materials. We've sent a deal now, apparently, the White House confirms, over to Iran for a potential nuke deal. Where do you see that going?
Well, this is an area where I think there's a lot of agreement. President Trump has said very clearly that the nuclear program in Iran has to be dismantled and there cannot be any enrichment. And that's the guidance he's given. In Israel, again, across the political continuum from Netanyahu to the opposition leader Lapid, everybody agrees that there cannot be Iran with a nuclear weapon and listen, or nuclear capability. Listen, here's the bottom line. This is a country that says its goal is to destroy Israel and to destroy America, the great Satan. This is a country that has orchestrated attempts on President Trump's life. They cannot have a nuclear weapon, and we should treat any agreement with Iran with a great deal of skepticism. But I'm hopeful that these negotiations will ultimately result in a full dismantlement of the nuclear program. If that happens, that'd be a great step forward. But that's the necessary step. It can't be anything less than that.
Well, and we noted last week the Ayatollah has said he thinks the talks will fail. So you have to wonder what he's hoping for there. In the meantime, we've got talks going on with Russia and Ukraine. The president seems increasingly frustrated with Vladimir Putin. We know Ukraine is saying this morning that Russia has launched the biggest number of drones it has in this entire warfare in the last 3 years. They've done that today. The president has said in recent days about Putin, quote, something has happened to him, quote, he's gone absolutely crazy. Is Putin the same person he's always been, but President Trump is just now seeing him for who he really is?
Well, listen, President Trump came into this with, I think, very clear-eyed about who he was dealing with on both sides. And he laid out a vision, which is we have to have a ceasefire. We have to stop the killing. We have to give Ukraine protection of its sovereignty, confidence. And the way to do that is to have the Europeans stand up and play the role that they need to play. and an economic arrangement that both help pay for the support the United States has given to Ukraine, but also create alignment of economic interest. This is a great framework, and the president's made progress on making that the source of discussion. Now, Putin needs to do his part. He was the source of aggression against Ukraine. There's a path here, but both sides need to get in. And I think the president's been very clear about his feelings on this, and I think we need to put additional pressure on Putin, and that there's a bill in the Senate by Lindsey Graham to do just that. I think that's going to be a great source of support for the president's agenda.
Well, and he and Senator Blumenthal were just on a trip to Kyiv and said, at least Senator Graham said he doesn't think that Putin actually wants peace, that he wants continued war. So we'll see as you guys work through that potential sanctions package as well. I want to make sure to ask you about tariffs. We've had a couple federal courts put the big, broad, sweeping tariffs on hold. Now, that decision through an appellate court is on hold, so the tariffs remain in place for now. But critics of what is happening here, because that international court said essentially this is the purview of Congress, that they have the tariff power and it's not to the executive branch. But critics say a lot of GOP lawmakers have simply been ceding the legislative branch's power to the executive branch. The New York Times writing, the Republican-led Congress isn't just watching the Trump administration gobble up its constitutional powers, it is enthusiastically turning them over to the White House. So what about the long-term implications for ceding some of the authority that is granted to you as a lawmaker?
Well, I thought that first, and I voted in support of this, that the president is exercising his emergency authorities appropriately. We have an emergency. We lost 100,000 people last year to fentanyl. That's twice as many as we lost in 8 years of war in Vietnam. We have a trade deficit that's beyond our wildest imaginations. We have huge supply chain challenges where semiconductors and pharmaceuticals are made outside the United States. This is an emergency. And so I think the president's exercising his authority appropriately, and you see this across a number of different things. And Shannon, I want to point to one which is so important, which is steel, where the president just raised the tariffs on steel. But here is something that I hope we're going to talk about, which is this partnership between Nippon and U.S. Steel, which was an incredible step forward for steel workers across our country. For the Mon Valley outside of Pittsburgh, it adds $2.4 billion of new investment, $14 billion of investment in places like Indiana and Alabama, Arkansas and Minnesota. And not only protects the 10,000 jobs outside of Pittsburgh and the Mon Valley, but adds 14,000 new jobs building a new arc furnace. So this is a huge thing for our domestic steel industry, which is greatly aided by the tariffs that President Trump has put in place to make sure we have fair trade. It's also great for our national security to have this strong domestic industry. And President Trump, who I briefed him on, or I talked to him about the deal, months ago when he came to Philadelphia to see the NCAA wrestling championships, and he pushed and he prodded. He wanted a better deal. He wanted to make sure that the U.S. kept control. And here we have a situation where we have a U.S. Steel based in Pittsburgh, a U.S. management team, a majority U.S. board, and government approval of key board members that protects America's interests. Great for the steel workers. You could see them on a rally yesterday cheering on President Trump. And great for Nippon because they get access to the great U.S. market.
One of the United Steelworkers Union still has some questions and some reservations about that. So we will see how it plays out as the details are fleshed out. Senator, I look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. Thanks so much for your time today.
Just on that, Shannon, just all you had to do was see that screen of those steelworkers cheering. I think we know that this is a great thing for the working people of Pennsylvania and the country. So thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.